I like anything with a story. So sometimes I'll arrive at a farm and it's a really posh, nice place and the grapes are really good, but there's nothing to it. There's just no story behind the vineyard. And then some other day you'll end up at a farm that's really rugged, nothing's nice, but you'll find this little vineyard on the top of a mountain that this guy's father planted when he used a horse to plow the ground 60 years ago, and there's like loads of history behind it. That's the kind of stuff that I'm looking for. Doesn't matter the varietal, doesn't matter anything. It's about finding that story and finding that little vineyard, something that no one else is interested in. Searching for little diamonds in the rough.
Talking about the young winemakers that are really, not necessarily young, but people with different ideas, people who are prepared to go beyond boundaries. And Peter Walser is an absolute example of it. He does his own thing, he travels his own path. He started from basically nothing, just a passion to make great wine, to be in the industry and to do different things.
So often these days, people judge a wine before they've tasted it, and that is exactly where he came along and said, it's blank bottle, you don't have to judge it, you don't have to say, oh, I don't like Chardonnay. You taste the wine and then you say, yeah, I do like it, even if it's called something weird. And then you find out, oh, it actually is Chardonnay.
When people first heard about it, a lot of people thought he's insane. You know, you've got to put all the details on the label, tell people what they're buying and how much they want to pay for it. He had this idea in his mind and he followed it through unbelievably. Peter's got an amazing eye for vineyards, for good grapes. That's what makes a winemaker, is someone who can see what's going to come out of the vineyards and then really puts it into the bottle in the best possible way.
In the wine industry and the wine market, there is so much on offer, and so often we all try to emulate the best. Peter's approach has been completely different, to go off and create original wines with original packaging. One has to always go back to the quality of the wine, and his wines are really great.
Moving into my own facility, we had the freedom, but it was very, very expensive. To cover that expense, we also had to grow in volume. I worked on my own that harvest. I would arrive back from the vineyard with my truck full of grapes. I had to offload it myself, clean the machines, put the previous day's juice into barrel. Then I had to throw the grapes onto the sorting table, sort it, press it, clean up everything. I worked so hard. It was really bad for the family, for myself, for everyone.
In the old cellar, the place was very small, and then we was working in some kind of pressure. It's difficult because you have to move the stuff right there in one place. You must wait. When the barrel finished there, you must put it aside, then you put another one because there is no space to pack a lot of stuff. So it was difficult.
So if I look back, I've got this love-hate relationship with the old winery. It was initially that sense of freedom, but the financial cost and the physical cost to make wine on my own there was so huge that I, in a certain sense, hated the place, but the other sense, I knew I had to do it.
Peter and I got married in his third year of university, and about 3 years thereafter, we decided to start with a family. And everything up to then was perfect. But then at my 22-week scan, the doctor told us that our baby had a defect, a bilateral cleft lip and palate. And it was such a shock. And it was just an absolute dream that was shattered, your picture of what it's like to have your first baby. And on top of that, he was born 6 weeks prem. Every night was 2-3 hours screaming, non-stop, and there was absolutely nothing you could do to stop him. It was just a question of survival. He had his first operation when he was 4.5 months old to close his lip, and the second operation he had when he was 9.5 months old to close his palate. I woke up one morning from a noise in the kitchen, and I found Peter standing there completely confused, covered in blood. And my first thoughts were that he had a stroke, and we rushed him to hospital. And after a first and a second and a third opinion, he got diagnosed with juvenile myoclonic epilepsy. And he was 30 years old, and he was booked off driving for a year. So you can imagine having your own business with a small baby and not being able to drive. So at that stage, I just decided there's no ways I can carry on working. I had my own Pilates studio, and I decided to sell the studio and started driving Peter around. I still remember one night, Peter had a wine tasting in Cape Town, which I had to drive him to. And it was pouring with rain, and I had nowhere to take the baby, so he had to go along. So we were sitting in downtown Cape Town, outside this apartment building where Peter was presenting the tasting, with the rain gushing down on the car, with this 7-month-old baby on the back seat. And I still remember sitting there and thinking, this is crazy. This is really not my picture of how it would be with me and my first child.
Vader, in 'n oomblik van stilte, kom ons tot die troon van genade om aan U te sê dank. Here, dat U het ons deur 'n nag gedra en weer eens vanmôre ons oë oopgemaak. Dat ons hierdie dag kan aanskou, Here, dat U is goed en dat U is regverdig. Kom dan nou, Here, en seën ons elkeen na mate U wonderlike wil. Gee aan ons die nodige moed en krag, so ook die gesondheid, so ook elke sieke vanmôre waar ook al te vind. Laat hulle U teenwoordigheid ervaar en weet daar is niemand soos U. Nie dat ons dit verdien nie, maar omdat U is getrou, sê ons aan U dank. In Jesus naam. Amen.
For the first 7 years of making wine, I hated my own labels. I had no money to pay for a designer. I had no designing skills. It had this name Blank Bottle written in a little block on Word, and I just changed the color. I started getting epilepsy. And after the second big epileptic fit, I was booked off driving. I was not allowed to surf, not allowed to drink alcohol. Me and my wife were at home, and we sat to design labels because we needed money, and we had new wines and had to design labels. I couldn't look at the computer because of that flickery thing on the screen. So we took scissors, paint, paper, and we started designing labels like that. And for the first time in my life, I designed a label that I actually liked. We called the wine Epileptic Inspiration.
I would say the turning point for Blank Bottle was when Peter entered the Wine Stars competition. It was a UK-based competition, and he flew to London, and he had 3 minutes to pitch Blank Bottle to all these judges who were all importers of wine in the UK.
My brand is called Blank Bottle, and Blank Bottle started off 8 years ago as a joke. So what happened is a lady came to me and said she wants to buy wine from me, but she doesn't drink any Shiraz. I only had 100% Shiraz, so I walked into my kitchen, I worked there, and I poured her a glass of wine, and she tasted the wine and said, it's great, she wants to buy 3 cases.
He did such an incredible job that all of the judges wanted to list him.
But some of the wines you do, it's just completely blank label. So it doesn't say anything, which is great. Actually, when I saw your first concept and all the explanation, I thought sometimes there's a very thin line between being insane and being genius. You are the latter, which is good.
There was one huge UK retailer that wanted to list Blank Bottle, and he wanted us to go with huge volumes.
Peter, Laithwaites are a larger independent wine merchant, but it's exactly the same principle that applies. We sell a lot of our wine direct to customers through shops and through the guys who work on the phone, and they'd love to tell your story.
And Peter just said no. I remember still thinking, it's crazy because we really need the money. He decided to go with another exporter who is a smaller exporter and who understands the heart of Blank Bottle and the character of Blank Bottle.
You've got a fantastic palate that suits very well the UK market, and it's very encouraging because it means that if we're asking for samples and things and commissions, if you like, you will deliver, and that's very exciting. We don't need to become a Bruce Jack and sell out to a company and see you disappear. We want you to stay where you are and do a lot more of it for many years to come. Well, congratulations.
Thank you for that. Justin.
Everything that happens here is driven by a vineyard with a great story. That vineyard grows in a specific place. It's got a certain climatical conditions. So we're at mercy of nature to produce wines. Most of my friends, there's also winemakers, they've got a small range, specific wines. They are very focused on, let's say, Cabernet. If there's not a good year for Cabernet, they have a serious problem. My sort of approach is more like a scattered approach. I make anything from anywhere. So if it's a bad year for Cabernet, something else would be good. So I don't have to stick to a certain range. I can chop and change like this.
Timing vir ons blik is absoluut perfek. Sure is mooi, suiker is perfek 23. Oor die algemeen is die sure hoër so hierdie jaar. Alhoewel dit droër jaar is, dit maak geen sin nie, maar die sure is oor die algemeen hoër. En ek dink net ons timing hierdie jaar vir die blik is perfek.
The most important relationship in this whole chain from vineyard to end consumer is the relationship with the farmer. So I would look at a farmer, if he's got something really special, we would bottle a wine from his vineyard, which he might have never seen before because most of his grapes go to a big winery where it goes into a blend. We would make a point to bottle something specific from that vineyard. Every year we'll stop by with a few bottles of wine that is only his grapes in that wine or where his grapes play a big role in the wine. We'll have a label designed that tells a story about that specific vineyard. I think to build that relationship is not about, it's not business by buying grapes. Yes, you do that, you pay on time, you pay a lot for the grapes, but the most important is you give something back to the farmer that he has never had before. Farmers are proud people. They like to receive stuff like that, that tells a story about his soil.
South African wine is a fairly novel or new concept. We're not like one of the big players out there.
Overseas, we were seen as quite boring, really. There's been amazing changes. Over the last 15, 20 years, young people have got involved, almost renegades who've traveled the world, have seen things, and have now gone out and done things themselves. They've taken financial risks. It's really making us a very exciting industry to the rest of the world.
Every country that makes wine is targeting your main markets in Europe, England, America. The South African wines are doing well, but it's still tough out there. I think where Peter has done really well is creating a very unique brand. It's a point of difference and that draws people towards them. That's where he's taking that challenge sort of head on.
At first he actually said to me, it's not going to work because he doesn't really need somebody. But his wife, Anine, kind of gave the phone to him and said to him, you will phone this girl now and you'll chat to her. You need help. You need somebody to come and help you. Everything is done very manually. There's not a lot of machinery. So for one man to do it alone, it's really physically hectic. What the driving force is behind him is everything he does, everything he decides, it's all about the gut feel. Everything needs to feel right. So there's no formula or recipe. Every single day is different, and he'll make decisions based on what feels right.
He is the biggest optimist ever. Whenever he starts something, he always thinks that the best is going to work out. Sometimes I just look the other way because I want to go the safe direction. He's got the vision and then he's also got the guts to go for it.
Nee, ek verstaan. Mens probeer beplan. Ek probeer ook beplan, maar dan heeltyd verander die goed. My beplanning vir die dag is al klaar weer heeltemal anderste. Okay. Right up. Ja. My dag weer heeltemal. Draak al weer hektiek. Nou kry ek 'n ton Riesling ook wat ek nou nie gebou kan doen. Ek wou graag hy drywe hê. Nou ek dink ek gaan dit kry.
There's no recipe for this is what it's going to be like. Some wines, every year we do a continuation of it, like Moment of Silence or Koffer. Other than that, it's always changing. And I think that's what makes Blank Bottle super unique, is that you're always sort of 5 steps ahead of everybody else because you're following your gut, because it's all intuition, because you're not following a recipe, and because you're free.
Up until a few years ago, very few people had heard about Pieter. I always found it very cool that I knew him and I knew his wines and I loved his wines. And I'd met many of his customers actually. And then I'd go to industry players and say, oh, I had a great bottle of Blank Bottle last night. And they're like, what's that? Even top merchants in Cape Town who had never heard of him. Tim Atkin came out here, who was a wine writer, and he said, oh, who's good in South Africa? And I said, Pieter Valse at Blank Bottle. And he was like, who's that? I'd never heard of him.
About 5 years ago, I was leaving early in the morning, going out to the vineyards, picking grapes, working late, and my son, Luca, didn't understand what I was doing. The one day I took him out of school for the day and I took him to a vineyard and I said, now let's pick a crate of grapes. And we squashed it and made a wine for him in the kitchen.
Ons het nou in die kelder Sinsou en Grenache wat ander tipe druiwe is, anders smaak as hierdie. So ons gaan bietjie Grenache en 'n bietjie Sinsou nog in jou kussie sit.
Everything that he does, he says it's to provide for his family. Family is everything to him. And I think that's the big driving force behind conquering challenges and stressful times. It's his family is sort of the golden prize to keep them safe.
He understands the whole process of picking grapes all the way. So if he walks into the winery, he knows that that tank's busy with fermenting. I have to punch down that one's in barrel, it's aging, that's in bottle. He understands the process. He knows what I'm doing here. His first year was only 1 bottle of Shiraz. So each year he makes about 20 little bottles and he sells it out.
Luca, aan jou eerste bottel wyn wat jy gebotteleer het, ek sien nie voor staan hy.
Wat is hier op jou label?
Met dinosaur.
Het jy 'n dinosaur gemaak?
Ja.
En wat se ouma gaan hom koop?
To me, Pete is not like my boss. To me, he's like one of my family. I remember the first time I'm working here, I couldn't put a sticker. But Peter was very, very patient to me. He taught me how to put a sticker and how to work. And that day, I feel so great. I'm provided. I'm up. I'm so proud. When Peter is going overseas, he's taking a trip. When he's coming back, he said, "Oh, I saw the wine is so clean. I'm so happy because I know that is coming out on my hands. I know I can provide the whole world on my hands."
Peter's labels are fascinating, and they're fascinating purely because they break so many rules. They break so many rules of traditional wine label design, but they also break rules of graphic design. He uses initially what I thought was horrendous typography. You can't help but notice them, and that's the point of packaging. It's not just a single message. You've gone from being fascinated by the sometimes bad piece of typography or wine that is bottled in a port bottle or something strange, and your curiosity has got you to another place. I don't think there's any other packaging, in South Africa at least, that does that.
Something in my brain changed. When I started getting epilepsy, I got, in a sense, more interested in charcoal sketches, paint, woodcuts, whatever. So I started doing all these things.
The design judges looked at these labels at first and wanted to throw them out after day one. After day 3, he was winning the Grand Prix because the designers had realized what he was trying to do. He was communicating unique messages about those wines.
The whole idea was always to tell the story about the vineyard in a subconscious way to the consumer, that he would look at the label and get some sort of idea what he's about to taste. Two years ago, I was sitting on a plane, and there was this guy that sat next to me. His partner's a brain doctor, and he's into marketing, and they formed this company where they tap into your subconscious. And they hooked me onto this whole system. So then my wife and Julia took samples of all the wines from barrel. That was all separate vineyards. They marked all the glasses. So they served me wine without me knowing what I was drinking. I've got all these preconceived ideas about certain farmers and vineyards and stuff like that. So that was sort of gone. So they basically monitored my reaction to all 21 wine components. So they left with the idea that they're going to select the top 6 wines, and then they're going to construct the best blend in the winery according to my subconscious. So each wine, the top one, had a graph from when I smelled it, tasted it, and we would match these graphs on top of each other to sort of form the perfect wine. From there, we worked percentages of each vineyard that needs to go into this blend to make the perfect wine. And only then we revealed the varietals, the vineyards that's going into that. So the one that is from my subconscious, we call limbic, or the back of part of your brain.
He draws crowds. We go over to wine shows in England. I distinctly remember and thinking, jeepers, I've been so busy tonight and all these people coming to talk to me. And turning to my left and seeing Peter surrounded by people. I think that is a lot of his personality that comes through, that he's very humble, he's very positive, and he's very entertaining. And wine brands need personalities behind them. And I think that will always be a strong point in his business, that he is Blank Bottle.
To move from the small winery to the big one, the thing that astonished me the most is that we started unpacking, and we unpacked, and it just didn't stop. I had 186 barrels in that small cellar. So whatever you see in this winery, it all came from there. The biggest thing, I think, moving into this winery, felt like someone sort of released me from jail. I was in jail and I was like set free.
Peter is a very good person, very understanding person, very patient person. I come here, I never touch anything. Everything was difficult for me to do. Today, I'm working in the cellar as a senior to my colleague. Since I come here, I know how the process works now, how to make wine. Because my boss and Julia can be somewhere, they can tell me something to do and they can do it. We are living like a family. Our team is very strong because we understand each other.
He doesn't have to compare to anybody else because it's only him that's making wines that he likes and that he believes in. So there's no competition for that because it's just who he is. That's what's in the bottle. To everybody, it seems like it's this big adventure, and it really is. But at the back, there's somebody that's focused, passionate, and driven. And this is what you see is a reflection of him. He has put in so much physical hard work. I mean, Blank Bottle is 12 or 13 years old, and only now he's got his own space. And before that, he was just sort of running it on his own because it's what he loved to do. So it's not to impress anybody or to make wine that anybody else is going to like. It's all just, it's his heart and soul. It's his project, it's his gut. It's a continuation of him. That's what Blank Bottle is.
I want them to taste the wine on an emotional level. I want them to get excited, involved. I want people to ask questions, say, why is it called Confessions of a White Glove Chaser? Or why is it called Casting for Chris and Becoming Paul? I don't want it to be like textbook, the nose is like this, the palate's like that, the acidity is like that. All my wines has got flaws in it. Every single one has got a flaw in it, but that is what gives it character. I want people to taste the excitement and the character in wines. If they like it or if they don't like it, it's not very important. If it's a 5-star wine or a 2-star wine, when they taste it, I want them to say, oh, what is this?